Om. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Sadashivasamarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Ramo Rajamanis Sada Vijayate Ramam Ramesham Bhaje Ramena Bihata Nishacharachamu Ramaya Tasmai Namaha. Ramannasti Parayanam Parataram Ramasya Dasosmyaham Rame Chittalaya Sada Bhavatu me Bho Rama Mamuddhara Samasta Jana Kalyani Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Satgurum Brahma Vidwaram Satgurum Brahma Vidwaram Akhandam Satchidanandam Avang Manasa Gocharam Atmanam Akhiladharam Ashraye Bhishta Siddhaye Arthatopyadvayanandan Atitadvaita Bhanatah Gurunaradhya Vedanta Saram Vakshe Yathamati. Hari Om. We were discussing the portion of Sthula conditioning, the gross conditioning. Swamiji started with the topic of Panchikaranam, how the 5 elements, they get grossified. And after that came the portion of how these 14 worlds are created from the same grossified 5 elements. And then different jivas who have to live in this world, they are given shariras, which are also made out of 5 elements. And now that jiva has to perceive the world. And that perception happens through sense organs, which have devatas presiding over them. So that portion was also described. How this Sthula Bhoga happens, that elaboration was done. And finally, Swamiji said, between Vyashti Sthula Sharira and Samashti Sthula Sharira, there is Abheda. There is oneness between individual and total. More I tune with this, deeper will become our devotion. 12th chapter, if you have to understand, of Bhagavad Gita, a lot of the vocabulary part of it comes from Vedantasara. Bhagavan makes a very simple statement. He says, Mayyeva mana adhatsva, mai buddhim niveshaya. O Arjuna, put your mind in me. Enter your mind or make your mind enter into me. Mayyeva mana adhatsva, mai buddhim niveshaya. Meaning what? Absorb your mind in me. Now we know how long we can absorb our mind in anything for that matter. Even those things which we like, right? Mind doesn't stay there more than 5 minutes, 10 minutes. When Mahatma Ji would say, if we can keep our mind on one topic for just 2 minutes, one can go in Samadhi. Only 2 minutes, without any other thought interfering in between, only that single thought. So that verse to understand becomes very difficult. How can I put my mind in Bhagwan all the time and in such a way that it stays there? Fortunately, another method is also available. What is that? To know Bhagwan as this creation. That Abheda part, what we saw, meaning what? This entire creation is nothing but my Bhagwan. So that person doesn't see a chair, a mic, a harmonium. He says, I'm seeing my Bhagwan Rama. I'm seeing my Lord Shiva appear as this chair. Vedantin will say, I'm seeing existence appearing as this. But this is Adhyaropa part, right? It is sweeter. So one can say, I'm seeing my Bhagwan as this. Later, once we conclude these two, again we will come back on a very general recap of what are the sadhana pointers over here. Vedantasara, unless we reflect upon it and try to see what is it speaking to a sadhaka, a lot of these pointers will not become very clear. So again, we'll do it. But the main point here was, if I have to see Bhagwan as his creation, then I need to know this entire process. That creation is made up of 5 elements. And those 5 elements have come through Panchikaranam. Panchikaranam happened from subtle elements. Subtle elements came from Ajnanam plus Brahma. Maya Upadi plus Brahma. Saguna Brahma is the main Karanam, is the main cause. From that cause, all the effects have emerged. Okay. And Arjuna says, Bhagwan, whatever you say, I understand it, but I'm not able to do it. What should I do? Abhyasa yogena tataha mamit chaptum dhananjaya. Arjuna, one thing you do, don't give up your practice. Make sure that you don't give up this way of thinking that my Bhagwan is appearing as his creation. That abhyasa one should keep doing. Just like other things we accomplished in our life with abhyasa, Bhagwan says this also will get accomplished one day. Aisa laga raho re bhai, teri banata banata ban jai. Means sadhaka is being told, stay on the same path. You won't know when it will click. Banata banata ban jai means gradually it will take us in that direction, making sure that we don't drop this way of thinking. And second, he says, Mamit chaptum dhananjaya. Arjuna, again look inside and see whether you really want me or not. Because I am appearing as his creation, well and good. But if you want some part of this creation, then you will lose sight of me. Right? If I am interested in a tree, my attention will get shifted from forest. So that is this whole sadhana, where we shift attention from not a part of creation, but to the creation itself. Not a part of creation, but to the creator. Okay, that was this Abheda. I realized that there were 2 lines that we did not cover while we were seeing 115th verse. Because it was such a big paragraph. We saw, for Devatas for Jnanendriya, we saw Devatas for Karmendriya, we saw Devatas for Antakarana, and then I moved on to the next verse. So there is one more line over there. All of you are there on the second last line of that verse. Chaitansh sarvan etan. Second last line. Chaitansh sarvan etan. Stula vishayan anubhavata. Meaning, Vishwa and Vaishwanara, presided over by these deities, are experiencing Sthula Vishaya. Okay. So in between everything that was said was what are the Jnanendriyas, organs of perception, what are the deities corresponding to them. What are the organs of action, the deities corresponding to them. What are the 4 components of Antakarana, and deities corresponding to them. Now it is said, with the help of Jnanindriya, Karmindriya and Antahkarana, Vishwa and Vaishwanara, they are experiencing Sthula Bhoga. Now if you say, what is the meaning of this Sthula Bhoga? One meaning is Spashta Bhoga. In Sukshma Bhoga, we had said it was Aspashta, Avivikta Bhuk, or Pravivikta Bhuk. Pravivikta means it is Aspashta. In dream, for example, all objects are there. Things are as though it is in waking world only, but it's very unclear. That's why we don't remember our dreams. But in Jagrat, those bhogas are very tangible and very clear. That is Spashta Bhoga. But you say, Jnanendriya is Sukshma. Karmendriya is also Sukshma, subtle. Antakarana is Sukshma. Whatever experience I am having is of thoughts only. So how can you say Sthula Bhogan or Sthula Vishayan Anubhavatah? Finally, even Sthula Vishaya is experienced as Sukshma Vishaya. So here there is an important point to note, that whatever is there in our mind has come from outside. There is no thought which is not of a Sthula Vishaya. And if we remove Sthula Vishaya, what remains is not mind, it is Chaitanya. Puja Gurudev had a quote, right? I'm blanking on the equation. I think it was consciousness plus object equals thought. Consciousness plus object equals thought. Means Chaitanya plus Sthula Vishaya equals Vritti. If you remove that Sthula Vishaya, what remains is not mind anymore. What remains is Shuddha Chaitanya. I mean, you can explain that equation in different ways, but for now, this one is good enough. Sthula Vishayan Anubhavata. All Sthula Vishayas have come inside in my mind as thoughts, and that Anubhava I am doing. And if I remove those Vishayas, what remains is Shuddha Chaitanya. There is no mind without outside Vishayas. There is no mind separately existing, devoid of external objects. That is why in Amruta Bindu, what was said? Mana eva manushyanam karanam bandha mokshayoho bandhaya vishaya saktam muktam nirvishayam smrutam. That mind which doesn't have sense objects, that mind which is not brooding over sense objects, that mind is liberated as though. It is all as though liberated. It will benefit the most from Shravanam. It will be able to abide in this knowledge. That is why it is said that mind is as though liberated. Okay. Bhagavan says this in Bhagavad Gita also. He says, Sparshan krutva bahirbahyan chakshushchaivan tare bhuvo. Arjuna, I will tell you very simple sadhana for meditation. Let outside objects remain outside. And what is really inside, that you can never put it out. Means Atma Swarupa Chaitanya, it is ever present inside. But whatever external objects are there, Sparshan Krutva Bahir Bahyan, whatever external objects are there in the form of sense perceptions which are coming, they're all coming from outside, let them be out. You don't unnecessarily bring them in. Then when you keep everything out, whatever is inside, meditate upon that. Arjuna says, Bhagavan, it is easy to say, but not that easy to practice. You say abhyasa. Keep doing that abhyasa, but this is another way to look at our mind. That everything has come from outside. I should be very careful what I put inside. And after I do that, also know that in my own Swarupa, there is no external object involved. In Atma Swarupa Chaitanya, there is no external object. Okay. Sthula Vishayan Anubhavatah Jagrita Sthano Bahi Prajna. Jagrita Sthano Bahi Prajna means what is Jagrata Avastha? That state where consciousness is turned outside. That state where consciousness is turned outside. Means consciousness becomes aware of the world outside. By itself, there is no creation in consciousness. So it is not Bahish Prajna, not Antah Prajna, not Ubhayata Prajna. No Prajna is there in Chaitanya. But with conditioning, it becomes aware of the world outside. And what is the conditioning here? Gross conditioning. Jagrita Sthano Bahih Prajna. This is Mandukya Upanishad. Chaitanya by itself is Prapanchopashama. There is no creation in Chaitanya. It is not turned inside, neither is it turned outside. But with gross conditioning, that same Chaitanya becomes aware of the world outside. Jagrita Sthano Bahih Prajna Ityadi Shrutehe. Okay. Now we had completed until 117th verse. Evam Panchikruta Panchabhutebhya Sthula Prapancha Utpattihi. In this way, from this Panchikruta Panchamahabhuta, 5 elements, this entire creation has come about. Which creation? Sthula Prapancha, the gross world. Whatever becomes known to my sense organs, that is Sthula. Whatever becomes known to my sense organs in Jagrata Avastha. Okay. Now let us see 118th verse. Etesham sthula sukshma karana prapanchanam sthula sukshma karana prapanchanam api samashtihi eko mahan prapanchah bhavati yatha avantaravananam samashtihi ekam mahadvanam bhavati yathava avantara samashtihi eko mahan jalashayah. Now this verse is the echo of what we hear in different stutis, either in Bhagavatam or in other places, that my Bhagavan is Ananta Koti Brahmanda Nayaka. In my excitement, I should not define this creation so well that I come to say, I know precisely what is Bhagavan's nature. It is like putting a period in space. You say, I will go to the end of space and maybe write a sentence in the sky and then put an end, dot over there. You see, space is infinite. You can never find that point. In the same way, this Brahmanda is infinite. Although we just described, right, how Panchamahabhutas are there, how they combine to become Sthula Prapancha. Sukshma also we defined, Karana we defined. And whenever we define these things, our mind starts forming some kind of a tangible idea that this is how it is. So this verse is to break that. It is said Brahmanda is infinite. The Brahmanda Swami who is there, how can he be finite? Creation is infinite. The creator has to be infinite. Even in regular day-to-day life, we see that, right? If you know what a person owns, with that you imagine how much, great is that person, how much of effort he must have put, or something good must have been there of that person, right? Either with land, you say, or some other thing that this person has. So this conglomerate, so many diverse portfolios are there. Then you imagine how much of effort that person must have put. So here Swamiji is trying to tell us what is the greatness of this creation. After having described Sthula Prapancha, now he is saying, Etesham Sthula Sukshma Karana Prapanchanam Api Samashtihi. Whatever we just discussed, there can be a possibility where all those are getting aggregated together to form another samashti. What we just discussed as Karana, Sukshma, Sthula, although they by themselves are prapanchas, they're so vast, but even they can combine to form another samashti. Samashtihi ekaha mahan prapanchaha bhavati. There could be a great prapancha which is combination of all these prapanchas. Yatha avantara vananam samashtihi ekam mahadvanam bhavati. Just like various forests put together becomes a bigger forest. Now he's not talking about trees. First he spoke about tree and forest. What he says, because you have discussed it so much, don't think that forest alone is absolute. He says those forests can combine together to become a bigger forest. They have this, right? In regional parks and all, they have smaller forests which they name. And then together it gets the name of one regional park. Right? So like that, these prapanchas which are there, aggregate of them can form one mahan prapancha. Forest example, and then he says, Yathava avantara jalashayana, or various lakes put together, samashtihi ekaha mahan jalashaya. It can come to become one big reservoir or one big lake. In the same way, these prapanchas put together can become one mahan prapancha. Puja Gurudev has a very beautiful quote where he says, to define God is to defile God. To define God is to defile God. Meaning what? If I say, this is what Bhagwan is, or I have figured out what is samashti, he says that is as though you are making Bhagwan another finite entity. So leave it at that. Safe way to say is, Bhagwan, you are everything. How much Bhagwan knows? I don't know. The best safe option is, say Bhagwan is Sarvajna, all-knowing. Yesterday, when we were chanting Shiva Mahimna Stotram, we had our Shiva Puja yesterday. One verse caught my attention, which is echo of this Vedantasara verse. That Bhagwan is infinite and his glories are infinite. You look at the poetic beauty of our rishis, how they have expressed this idea. Let me read the verse first and then I'll try to explain. Asitagiri samam syat kajjalam sindhu patre surataruvara shakha lekhani patramurvi. Asitagiri samam syat. If there is ink, which is equivalent to the mountain, Asita is the name of the mountain. If there is ink equivalent to that Asita mountain, like Mount Meru, let us say, very huge. Kajjalam Sindhu Patre. Kajjalam means ink. If that ink is equivalent to that mountain, and the pot from which that ink has to be taken, that is like this ocean. Sindhu means the ocean, that is the pot from which this ink is taken. Surataru Vara Shakha Lekhani. What is the pen we are going to write now? Bhagwan's glories we are going to write. What is the pen? Surataruvaru Shakha. The branches and twigs of trees, they are pens. Lekhani. What is the paper? Patram Urvi. Entire Mother Earth is the paper on which we are going to write. From the ink which is equivalent to that mountain, and the container, the pot equivalent to that ocean, the pen made out of the twigs, and the earth as the paper we are going to write. Who is going to write? Nobody ordinary. Likhati yadi gruhitva sharada sarvakalam tadapi tava gunanam ishaparam nayati. Likhati yadi gruhitva. If Mother Sharada comes and holds that pen and starts writing on Mother Earth as the paper, sarvakalam, forever she is writing and writing and writing. Tadapi tava gunanam ishaparam nayati. Even after that, Bhagwan, your gunas nobody will come to know. Can anybody compare the poetic beauty? So the main thing is, whoever is my Ishta Devata, in my Bhagwan, I should also appreciate his power. This whole discussion is for that. That I should not feel my Bhagwan is somebody who is very small, who is limited to that form. He is expressing in that form, but he is Akhilanda Koti Brahmanda Nayak. Aggregate of all samashtis, that is my Bhagwan. Now with this, Chaitanya with Stula Upadhi. The same Chaitanya conditioned by gross conditioning. He says, don't look at them as different Chaitanyas. It is one Chaitanya only. Once it got conditioned by Karana, then it got conditioned by Sukshma, now it has gotten conditioned by Sthula. So they are not three different Chaitanyas or three different people. It is the same consciousness. What has changed is only the conditioning. That is said in the 119th verse. Etad upahitam Vaishvanaradi Ishvara Paryantam Chaitanyam api Avantaravana Avachinna Akashavate Avantara Jalashayagate Pratibimba Akashavaccha Ekam Eva Avantara Jalashaya. I think the Ra is missing in the book, so you can add it. Etad Upahitam Chaitanyam. This conditioned consciousness. Vaishvanaradi Ishvara Paryantam. Starting from Vaishvanara, what we just discussed. Right? Consciousness conditioned by gross conditioning, all the way until causal conditioning, all the way until Ishvara. Chaitanyam api avantara vana avachinna akashavat. This Chaitanya which is there, that is one alone, just like that space is one, even though it is getting conditioned by different conditionings. Or that space getting reflected in the lake, that is one, although it is getting conditioned by different conditionings, different lakes might be there. But the one that is getting conditioned, that is only one. Avantara Jalashayagat Pratibimba Jalashayagata Pratibimba Akashavaccha Ekam Eva. Smaller sentence if you want to say, it is Etad Upahitam Chaitanyam Ekam Eva. Etad Upahitam Chaitanyam Ekam Eva. There is only one conditioned consciousness. Unconditioned is one, conditioned is also one only. Conditionings are many. The best example for this is, there is one person who is playing three different roles in a play. First, that person comes in the first part of the play with one costume, has his role done and everything, and goes inside, comes back, and sometimes they don't have time to change it. So they keep that and then put the second costume on top of it. Right? Second role he plays. Third role also goes inside and comes and then plays the third role. Now, in and through all the three roles, it is only one person. But externally, if you see, there is so much of difference. Right? First role might be of a king. Second role might be of a very poor person. Third role might be of a minister. Now, there might be differences in the conditioning, but the person is the same. So, Chaitanya being the same gets conditioned by Karana Upadhi, Sukshma Upadhi, and Sthula Upadhi. But conditioned consciousness also is one only. Only conditionings are changing. It is the same consciousness. If you want, you can take one samashti as one conditioning. Okay. Now comes Mahavakya Upadesha. Mahavakya, not direct Mahavakya Upadesha, but it is just making us appreciate that all these conditionings, conditioned consciousness and unconditioned consciousness, they are mixed up. But we should not miss Chaitanya in and through all this thing. And when Mahavakya comes, all conditionings will be removed. What will remain is only Shuddha Chaitanya. Let us see that verse 120. Abhyam mahaprapancha tad upahita chaitanyabhyam taptayah pindavate aviviktam sate anupahitam chaitanyam sarvam khalvidam brahma iti vakyasya vacyam bhavati viviktam sate lakshamapi bhavati. Before we go into this, let us take a simple example. With that, we'll appreciate this verse better, hopefully. Imagine there is a student to whom Guru is giving Mahavakya Upadesha. But that student is from our same Vedantasara example. Who is the student? Vana avachinna akasha. That space conditioned by forest, that is the student. Okay, just for example purpose. Now teacher has to tell him, you are not this forest, you are infinite. You are infinite space. Tattvamasi, Mahavakya to that. Vana avachinna akasha. So first when the teacher says, Tvam, you. Now what are the things the teacher expects the student to appreciate there? One, there is forest. Vana is there. Second, there is space conditioned by forest. Vana avachinna akasha is there. And third is unconditioned space. Right? Unconditioned space is there. Now these three things, although they are present, they are so mixed up that attention does not go to that space at all. When we go in a forest, do we feel that I am going in space which is there in the forest? Or do I just say I went to the forest and came? Right? That is this whole part. Adhyaropa is to make sure that I recognize all the elements which are present over there. In the example, it is Vana, means Upadhi, Vana avachinna akasha, conditioned space and unconditioned space. All three things should be recognized. Now when the teacher says, you are infinite, which of the three is infinite? He says, Vana cannot be infinite, forest cannot be infinite, right? Upadhi cannot be infinite. Why? Because space ends. I mean, the forest ends at some point. The upahita akasha, Vana avachinna akasha, he said, until the forest is there, only until that point is the space conditioned by the forest. Right after that, it has nothing to do with it. So that cannot be infinite. So then what is infinite? He says that unconditioned space which is there, that is infinite. It never got conditioned by that forest to begin with. Okay. Now, when these three things are mixed up, and the teacher says to that conditioned forest, Vanavachinna Akasha, that you are infinite, what is really referring to is that space only. Okay. When those three things are mixed up, it is called as Vachyartha. When he's saying you, if I mix up all the three things, it is called as Vachyartha. What am I mixing up? Forest, space conditioned by forest, and unconditioned space. Although the teacher implies only unconditioned space, but for the student it is mixed up now. All three are mixed up. But when he does Viveka, and comes to understand what is referred by that Tvam, is only that unconditioned space. Not the conditioning, not the conditioned also. So that when everything is separated out, it is called as Lakshyartha. Okay. Important thing to note here is, in Vachyartha and Lakshyartha, what is referred to is space only. In one case, it was mixed up with conditioning. Another case, it is different from conditionings. Okay. In Vachyartha, it was mixed up. Lakshyartha, it was separated. If the space example is clear with forest and space example, now come to this verse. Abhyam Mahaprapancha tad upahita chaitanyabhyam. Between Mahaprapancha, means this entire gross world, you can include all other conditionings also. Between that and conditioned consciousness, there is mix-up. Tapta ayah pindavat aviviktam sat anupahitam chaitanyam. When it is mixed up along with this anupahita chaitanya, then that is called as the Vachyartha of Mahavakya. The literal meaning of Mahavakya. Sarvam Khalvidam Brahma. Now we can have a discussion on whether this is Mahavakya or not. Because in Mahavakya, Aikyam should be pointed out between Jiva and Brahma. So here only Sarvam word is used. Everything is Brahma. What you should understand is, in that Sarvam, I also is included. Okay. Or you can take Tattvamasi, it is easier. That's why for Mahavakya analysis, they take Tattvamasi Mahavakya. It is very straightforward. So when I say conditioning, conditioned consciousness and unconditioned consciousness together mixed up, that unconditioned consciousness mixed up with conditioning becomes Vachyartha. Okay, just like that space, unconditioned space mixed up with the forest and conditioned space becomes Vachyartha. Here also unconditioned consciousness mixed up with Prapancha and Upahita Chaitanya, mixed up with conditioning and conditioned consciousness becomes Vachyartha. Viviktam sat laksham bhavati. If you are able to separate it out, then that unconditioned consciousness becomes Lakshyartha. Okay. So the whole part of our Adhyaropa Prakriya is, first, shift attention from conditioning to conditioned consciousness, and from conditioned consciousness to unconditioned consciousness. And in the beginning state, it is okay if everything is together mixed up. Right? Because at least Vachyartha, we are adding Chaitanya. Vachyartha doesn't mean only Upadhi. Huh? Vachyartha means Upadhi plus Upahita plus Anupahita. Means whenever I see myself, I should look, this Upadhi is what comes to me the first. But I should also bring in my mind conditioned consciousness and unconditioned consciousness. Whenever I look at other person, Upadhi is there. Physical form is there, but it should bring to my mind Upahita Chaitanya, conditioned consciousness and unconditioned consciousness, which is only one. Right? So with this Adhyaropa Prakriya, gradually this mind opens up. Dissolving Vyashti into Samashti, all of that, right? Conditionings are the same. Conditioned consciousness is the same. Unconditioned anyway is the same. So what am I so proud of? Right? Through that, we get ready for Mahavakya. Because in Mahavakya, what will happen is, whatever conditionings are there, Apavada will be done of that. Why? Because all these conditionings have emerged from consciousness. Whatever has emerged from consciousness is not a real emergence. It's only an appearance. That is why you can negate it. But I should systematically appreciate first how this entire thing is coming together. How from consciousness, Upadhi came in between, and then Upahita Chaitanya came out. Okay. With this, Adhyaropa part is complete. Now just this word Viviktam, right? Last line is Vachyam Bhavati Viviktam Sat Laksham Api Bhavati. In Vedanta, we have different levels of Viveka. Viveka means ability to discern, ability to distinguish. One Viveka is very transactional. What I should eat, what I should not eat. What I should do, what I should not do. How much I should engage, how much I should withdraw. All this is part of Viveka. And it is important for a Vedanta sadhaka. Second Viveka is Nitya Anitya Viveka. What is permanent and what is impermanent. Between that, I should be able to discern. And if that sadhaka is lucky to have Vairagya, then towards the impermanent, he should have Vairagya. Right? After discerning what is permanent, what is impermanent, if I still hold on to what is impermanent, he says your Viveka has not served much purpose. So Viveka should be followed with Vairagya. That is second level, Nitya Anitya Viveka. Third level of Viveka is Satya Mithya Viveka. What is real? What is unreal? Okay, so over here, what is being referred to is the third one. Viviktam Sat Mahavakyasya Laksham Api Bhavati. Means after understanding that all these are conditionings, everything is Nama Rupa. Between Nama Rupa and Sat, I should be able to do Viveka. Nama Rupa is Mithya, Sat alone is Satyam. If I am seeing the world, what I am seeing is Nama Rupa. And right there where there is Nama Rupa, there is Shuddha Chaitanya. And between them, there is mix-up. So ability to distinguish both of them and abide in the substratum. In Drigdrishya Viveka, this part was used for Bahya Samadhi, meditating on the world outside. What did Swamiji say? Name and form you leave aside. Separate name and form and recognize Asti Bhati Priyam. Means Satchit Ananda. Recognize the existence, recognize the consciousness there, if it's a sentient being, and recognize the Ananda present there. Both these things, they will appear mixed up. Last 121. Evam vastuni avastu aropaha adhyaropaha avastu aropaha adhyaropaha samanyena pradarshitaha. Now this started right when we discussed adhyaropa definition. Vastuni avastu aropaha adhyaropaha. Then Swamiji started with what is avastu. He said first avastu is ajnanam, then came Sukshma, then came Sthula. Now he's completing that chain of thought. He says, in this way, evam vastuni avastu aropaha adhyaropaha. Superimposing avastu, not self, on the self, this is called as adhyaropa. Samanyena pradarshita. Samanyena means what? This adhyaropa which is common for everybody. Means in general we end up thinking ourselves to be this body, to be this mind. But now Vedantasara made it even more precise. So many things are pointed out in and through this. I did not know that there were 5 pranas and then 5 upapranas and so many things. All those are part of adhyaropa. Without thinking, these are the errors that I can commit. Shuddha Chaitanya thinking itself to be body, mind, and so on. Now he says there are some people who after thinking a lot commit some errors. That is Vishesha Adhyaropa. It is not that they have not thought about life, they have not thought about themselves. They have thought a lot. And after doing everything, they say, I am this body. After doing so much of vichara, they say, I am this mind. So these are different darshanas, different schools of thoughts. Okay, I don't want to enter that topic because we'll leave it halfway. It needs a different background to start with. So this will continue later after we start. But in the remaining time, we'll just try to recap few main points of what we have covered so far. And Vishesha Adhyaropa, we will see when we meet again. Okay, after summer. Next session, we will do a Q&A. So if you have any questions, you can turn it in the Google form. We'll devote time just to go over any other ideas, any topics that you found was unclear, or your own mananam, you have something to share, you can do it. What are the key takeaways now? Main thing from this Adhyaropa discussion, key takeaways from Adhyaropa discussion is recognizing that there are 3 main entities. One is called as Anupahita Chaitanya, pure consciousness. Then comes Upadhi, conditioning, and Upahita Chaitanya, conditioned consciousness. It is just like there is a white light, there is a prism, and then you have light in 7 different colors. Main one is Anupahita, white light is Anupahita. Prism is the Upadhi. Conditioned light is the one with 7 colors. Meaning Nirguna Brahma is Anupahita Chaitanya. Ajnanam is the Upadhi. And Saguna Brahma is Upahita Chaitanya. Now if you have the question, how can Nirguna become Saguna? You say, why not? Right? Both look very different, no doubt. But if Upadhi is present, anything is possible. How can white light appear as 7 different colors? I say Upadhi was present. Conditioning was present. So with Maya Upadhi, same Nirguna Brahma appears as Saguna. That is one point. I mean, the clarity that Vedantasara gives, it is unmatched. In terms of all Vedantic concepts, what we have to do is again keep revising, again keep going back and tying the dots, connecting the dots. Okay. What we saw in Ramcharitmanas, the same point. This was a question that Satiji had. How did Nirguna Brahma become Saguna? And how is doing this? How is he doing all these leelas? He is lamenting, he is crying, and then he's going around searching for Sita ji. So that we should keep connecting wherever we can find. Nirguna can become Saguna because of conditioning. But in Ramcharitmanas, what was said? The conditioning is the heart of a devotee. The prayer of a devotee makes the unmanifest Brahma manifest as Saguna. Okay, so that was one point. Second is, when I think about myself, when I think about Tvam, or I think about Tat, creation. All these things should come to my mind. Upadhi should be there. Upahita Chaitanya should be there. The life force enlivening it, and Anupahita Chaitanya. Okay. Upadhi, Upahita, and Anupahita. Anupahita means pure consciousness. And within Upadhi, we saw three Upadhis: Karana, Sukshma, and Sthula. Okay. And only when this Adhyaropa is done correctly, not just reading Adhyaropa, but I try to put forth effort to dissolve Yashti into Samashti. Only then Apavada will work for me. Only when Adhyaropa works well, Apavada will work for me. It is just like when we have soiled clothes or utensils, right, which has a lot of things inside stuck. We put the solution, the detergent, and sometimes we leave it overnight. Right? Why? Because Adhyaropa has to happen very well. Immediately, if you try to wash the detergent, that stain won't go away. So this Adhyaropa also should remain, even if I take myself to be a jiva. So the main thing which should happen is I should dissolve myself into totality. Dissolve my opinions, dissolve my perspectives into totality. When that Adhyaropa happens well, and Vedanta comes and says, everything is mithya. Jagat is mithya, Brahman alone is satyam. That I'll be able to digest very well. Why? Because as part of Adhyaropa, my Vyavahara is very well taken care of. Otherwise, we will try to use Vedanta to find some Vyavaharic solution. And Vedanta's whole point is to say, Vyavahara is an appearance in Brahma. Right? And constantly I will struggle with so many questions. Right? If I am Brahma, what is the point in working outside? What is the point in striving to get those things? This is Vedanta never says absolute solution for Vyavaharic concerns. Vyavaharic solution will have Vyavaharic perspectives. And the main one here is dissolving Vyashti into Samashti. This text is called Vedantasara. Right? Vedantasara. The main essence of Vedanta is to remove the sense of discontentment from within. This feeling that I don't have something with me right now. Part of the discontentment will be removed in Adhyaropa phase. That if somebody can be devoted to Bhagavan, if you can tune mind with Bhagavan, that discontentment will go down to a great extent. Right? And whatever we feel we don't have with us right now, that is what we try to get from outside. That is what we get attracted outside. This also we should think. What are those things which I'm getting fascinated outside? They're only those things which I don't have right now. And Vedanta says there is nothing in this creation that I don't have. This point comes in Chandogya Upanishad also. He says it is very unfortunate if somebody feels that they are lacking something inside and they don't have, certain things. He said Upasana Balam is so strong that it can give them joy just by meditating upon Bhagavan. The joy that Vishaya can give is a much greater joy these objects can give. And Upasana Phalam also, they say in Chandogya, it can bring those objects also. That is also said there. Means if I am seeking something like intelligence, that example is given. It says if you meditate upon intelligence as Brahma, then certain phalashruti you will have. Certain powers, siddhis you will get. Just don't run after small things outside. Just do this sadhana. Okay. But the main point is discontentment should be removed from within. In Adhyaropa itself, then Apavada will come and remove the final source of discontentment. He says, Ananda Swarupa is my nature. I don't have to seek any Ananda outside. Okay, so that is one. Now the three conditionings that we saw, right? First was Ajnanam, second was the Sukshma conditioning, third was Sthula. Or you say first one was Karana, Sukshma and Sthula. Now there are some sadhanas for each one of them, so that we can appreciate in and through the Sadhyaropa, what can I do? For Karana, it is said all our vasanas are there, samskaras are there in this Karana. And what did Vedantasara say? Bhagwan's Karana Sharira is Vishuddha Sattva Pradhan. It is very, very pure. It is Vishuddha Sattva. And what is Jiva? Malina Sattva. So my sadhana should be to tune this Malina Sattva with Vishuddha Sattva. Meaning, in and through my Vyavahara, in and through my all transactions, I should do things as though Bhagwan is watching me. Antaryami Bhagwan is watching me. With that, lot of things will end up doing what Bhagwan likes. If somebody is very sincere, somebody is very mindful. When Mahatma Ji was sharing one story, that one person came to him and he said, my problem is I speak a lot of lies. I'm so good at throwing things. Very unknowingly, I say things and later I regret. A lot of asatyam I say. Mahatma Ji, tell me something. What can I do? This is only that much. It is not a problem. Whenever you tell a lie, think as though you are telling in the darbar of Bhagwan Rama. Bhagwan Rama is sitting, Sita Ji is there, Lakshman Ji is there. And every time you tell a lie, they are amused. They say, look at this person, what a lie he is saying. And he said, that person came back to him again. He said, I tried very hard, but it's difficult for me to speak in front of Bhagwan. When we lose this thought that Bhagwan is, right here, or when we start thinking that Bhagwan is somewhere, I am somewhere, this jiva goes to do some kind of adharma. He says, if you always remember that he is watching Antaryami Bhagwan, then Malina Sattva can tune to Vishuddha Sattva. Okay. And this is more internal sadhana, not as much of what the world sees or recognizes. Right? Second was with regards to Sukshma conditioning. Sukshma conditioning means subtle conditioning. The main sadhana there was tuning my individual mind to totality. And the obstacle there is my mind gets stuck with some or the other conditioning. Some or the other bhagas, although there are 6 bhagas we say, right? But if you are not careful, those 6 bhagas come to hide our attention from Bhagwan. Ishavasya Upanishad, there is one mantra. Hiranmayena patrena satyasya pihitam mukham. The devotee is praying to the Lord. Hiranmaya means what? Hiranyagarbha. That's why this mantra is there. The glory of Hiranyagarbha is hidden to me by all these bhagas. Means my attention is either on small Aishwarya, small Shriya, small wealth, or some or the other bhaga is taking my attention away. So the prayer to Bhagwan is, may I not get stuck anywhere, may I see your glory. Tattvam pushan napavranu satya dharmaya drishtaye. I want to see your form, Bhagwan. I want to see you as samashti. Please make sure that I don't get stuck with small opinions. That is the sadhana for Sukshma Upadhi. Tuning this Vyashti with Samashti, individual with total. Last one is Sthula Upadhi, means the gross world that we see. One of the main sadhana there is first to recognize that this body is made up of 5 elements, in particular, earth element. Annam, that's why we call this as Annamaya. Right? And outside also is Annamaya only, majority. Although there are other elements, water is there, air is there, and so on. But earth element is predominant. So that's why you will find in Upanishad, lot of mantras talking about importance of Annam. Taittiriya Upanishad, it is said, Annam nanindyat. Don't criticize food. And Annam bahu kurvit. Have plenty of food. Why? Because it is the one that is nourishing this body. So sadhana at sthula sharira starts with food, but it goes beyond that also. That whatever nama rupa I am seeing, whatever name and form I am seeing, shifting attention to consciousness. All 5 things are there. It is not only gross, there is conditioned consciousness. Same place there is unconditioned consciousness. Okay. More we keep reflecting, something new will keep opening up for us. That is the whole purpose of this. Okay. More questions, if you have, you can turn it in the form, and next session we can devote only for that reflection. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Okay, there is one question which we'll take it in the next.